ישראל היא הבית שלי, ישראל החלום שלי.
This video is going to be about paperwork, starting from your decision-making process to the flight approval. So I decided a very long time ago that I did want to live in Israel, and as the years continued, it strengthened my resolve to make Aliyah. And when I finally spoke to my family and friends about it a few months ago, they were really supportive about my decision, and they were really helpful in any information that they could gather, they would share with me, and it made my process that much easier. So I'm really appreciative to them, and I think that if you guys speak to your friends and family to gain their support or to help them understand why you're making this decision, that would only help you with a smoother transition. Step number 1. I had begun the Aliyah process a number of years ago, about 2-3 years ago, and I went to the Nefesh website and I filled out their first initial application, which is just basic information where you have to answer some personal information, some questions about why you want to make Aliyah, so that they know that you're making the decision for the right reasons, and then that's a jumping board to go from there into the true paperwork process, which is a little bit more time consuming. So because I had filled out that initial application, I didn't have to do it this time, but that one is really easy, very similar to a college application as far as I remember, and it took me maybe 2 hours, and that was it. And then I got a phone call from an Aliyah advisor that was discussing with me the papers that I was going to need, and it sounded really simple, really easy. That was 3 years ago. Now what happened was I spoke to someone at a Nefesh fair in the city, and I told them I was interested in making Aliyah this year. They then called me later, and I asked them if I can reopen my application, and they gave me an email address to email. I emailed that person. About 2 weeks later, my application was reopened, and I got an email from my new Nefesh advisor, Yitzi, and he explained to me how to use the application, and I opened it, and it was really simple, really easy, and it had a list of all the information that they wanted and all the papers that you needed to fill out. So really, I have it open right next to me right now. So that I can give you guys an overview of what to expect on the application if you want to, try to gather some information prior to make it quicker and easier to do. They just ask you for basic information like your name, your phone number, your parents' names, your parents' birthdays, your birthday. The paperwork that they ask you for, they give you all the papers so that it's all in one spot. It's really easy to find, and they give you links to explain what each of those paperworks are for, what's needed for each of them, and the guidelines to follow to make it simpler and smoother for you to go through this process. They ask you for an address in Israel. Not everyone's going to have one right away. That's okay. You don't need to give one right away. I actually gave one more recently. I just updated it, and I'm already approved for everything. So there are very few things that are actually going to stop the process from continuing, and anything like that you can talk to your Nefesh advisor on, and they're going to tell you what to do, and they're going to give you advice, and they're really helpful, and they're there to help. And they also ask you if you have any special flight needs, like if you have a wheelchair, if you're bringing a pet, if you have special dietary needs, if let's say you have a broken leg, things like that they need to be aware of to help accommodate you. And so you do need to inform them about those things, and that's the place to do it. And then for pets, there is some paperwork that you need to fill out, and you need to get approval and get the pet cleared. So there is a link that will give you the guidelines for the government of what you need to do for that. Really simple, really easy. They do ask you to post a picture on the application of whoever is making Aliyah. So because it's just me, I posted a picture of myself. If it's family, post a picture of a family. Put everyone in the picture because you can only upload one picture. They do ask you for 2 pre-Aliyah contacts because they want to be able to get in touch with you if there's any emergency or anything happens where they need to talk to you, and you no longer have your American or UK or Canadian phone number. So I wrote down my parents because they're going to be with me all the time pretty much. up to my Aliyah date, and they're bringing me to the airport. So if anything does happen, they are the two prime people that I can be in touch with and I can be in contact with. They do ask you for the basic passport information that you have to fill out pretty much all the time whenever you have anything to do with international travel. Make sure your passport is not expired. If it is expired and you need a new one ASAP, there are many places that you can get an overnight, or in a few days you can get a new passport. Look it up, Google it, call your post office. There are certain government places that will do it for you. They ask you for proof of living outside Israel. An expired passport can work. A current driver's ID might be possible. A high school or college transcript will help. Different things like that. If you are in a bind, look at any paperwork. You might be able to, if you have a bank in a place, there might be a way for you to use that. You also have your entry and exit form. This is important because they want to know the last few times you've been in Israel. I think 7 years to the present, and that's really easy. Usually if you have you use a passport for it, so then all you have to do is look through the passport and look at the stamps and look at the dates, and you'll be able to figure it out if you don't remember offhand. That's what I did. It was really convenient, really helpful, and I was able to fill it out. You have to pay $50 for the application fee, and you do have to pay $50 for the ticket fee, but that's really it. That's the entire application. Keep in mind that it does take a few days for the papers for the things that you submit and the papers that you upload to process through, so it's not going to show up right away, so you can't just refresh the page and expect it to be there. So you have to give it time to go through. If it's not going through after 2 weeks, then you can email your Aliyah advisor and tell them that there is an issue and explain it to them, and they might have you just email the papers to them and you're good to go. But keep in mind that you do have to be patient with this. Step number 2. So you're going to be calling your Jewish agency for an interview so that you can get a visa to go to Israel. What you have to do is you have to keep up on what papers are available, and then the Jewish agency interview box will be yellow, and you'll be able to call them and ask for an interview once all your papers are submitted. They'll be able to set you up with an interview when you're available, at the time you're available. I went to the city because I live in New York, and I met with a woman named Moore, and she was really helpful, really sweet. I brought all the original documents with me, and I brought copies just in case she wanted any of the papers and was unable to make a copy. She ended up taking, I think, one of the papers or making a copy of it. I don't remember offhand. And it was really easy, really simple. She asked me a few questions about why I wanted to make Aliyah, what I wanted to do in Israel, things like that. Answered them quick and easy. The interview lasted maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, not long at all, really quick. Then I filled out a visa form. They will help you. Just ask them for help. I found it really easy and really simple to fill out. She told me exactly what to fill out. Filled it out. Handed her my passport. Keep this in mind. You have to give them your passport so that you can get the visa in the passport. They will send it back to you. After you get approved, it takes about 2 weeks for the visa to be processed, and then they will either mail it back to you if you prefer, or you can go pick it up. They will give you that option. Once it's approved, you will get an email asking. Approval time does take time. It could take anywhere from 1 day to months later. I asked people in so many different Facebook groups who have made Aliyah how long their approval took them. There was such a range of approval times that you can never know. It took me 1 day because I did explain to her that I did have a job that I need to make sure I got on the right flight for. I did explain to her that my family was making a vacation, that my family was taking a vacation and needed to know my flight date so that they can make their vacation and plan it. I have a job here as well that I'm finishing in the summer, so I really needed to make sure I had a small window of time, and I explained that to her too. I explained to her all of my concerns, and I ended up getting approved the next day. So do talk to them, do be friendly with them, and do explain to them your concerns, and be patient because this is their job and they're not trying to be annoying. Step number 3. Once you get your Jewish agency approval and your visa goes through and gets processed and gets sent back to you, you will get an email about a flight. So there's 3 different types of flights to choose from. There is the group flight, the charter flight, and the flexible flight. The charter flight is the one that has the ceremony at the airport before you leave, and it has the ceremony once you land. And the ceremony lasts about an hour, sometimes a little bit more. And then because the entire flight is filled with olim, the paperwork does take longer to go because you have all those people who are waiting online and they're tired. So be aware of that, especially if you have children who are going to be exhausted from the flight and exhausted from the long day. There's a rush of energy and then there is a crashing moment. So just be aware of that before you do choose that flight. The luggage guidelines for the charter flight are 2 luggages, 70 pounds each, a carry-on, and a backpack or purse type of bag. You cannot get an extra bag. You cannot pay for one. They don't allow it because everyone on that flight is already bringing extra things. Be aware that it's 2 70-pound bags per person. So if you are a family and you have one child who only needs 1 luggage, you then have an extra bag to use for the rest of your family because you're going to need it. So that's really important to be aware of. There's the group flight. The group flight is where there's just a group of olim. There's not really a ceremony. They do have a little welcoming thing in the office when you're filling out all the paperwork afterwards. It does take some time, but not nearly as much as with the charter flight because there is less people. The luggage guidelines is there are 3 50-pound bags. You have a carry-on, and then you have a backpack or a purse type bag. For the group flights, you are allowed to pay for extra luggage because it's still on a regular flight. So there is a way to pay for extra luggage if you do need. So just be aware of that because that is really convenient for some people and really, really helpful. And a lot of people go on the group flights because of that. The flexible flight has the same guidelines for luggage as the group flight does. The flexible flight is really an individual flight. You pick a flight. It has to get approved. You go through and you can go on that flight with your family or with you by yourself. There is no ceremony. There is no welcoming thing. You just go to fill out the paperwork afterwards. Sometimes they'll give you a hat. They'll give you snacks and food while you're waiting in the room. And that's really it. They do allow you 3 luggages for 3 50-pound bags, a backpack, a carry-on. You can pay for overweight luggage and you can pay for extra luggage. Be aware with the charter flight, if you do have an overweight luggage, they have the right to reject taking your bag. So be very careful about how much your bags weigh. So just make sure you're aware of what you need because that will help you choose what flight is necessary. So then you choose the flight. They have to approve the flight. Once they approve the flight, you are going to get an email with guidelines of the entire day. When the ceremony is starting, if you're going on a charter flight, or what to do, pets, if you're going with a pet, what paperwork to fill out. You do have to fill some things out at the bottom of the pages. So make sure you do go through all the pages and you constantly make sure that if there are any updates, you do put them in because they're really important for everyone to be informed about your information that you need. So you're going to go through that whole thing and it's going to explain to you when your flight is. It's going to explain to you how long they think it'll take, about the paperwork process, luggage guidelines if you need with dimensions. It's going to also ask you for information, again, about your meal preference, if you have any dietary needs, if you have any pets that you're getting approved, what your address is going to be when you get there, like where you're going to be going. If it is a temporary address, they ask you for your phone number in Israel as well. These things they do need to know for the taxi voucher. When you do get there, you are going to get a free taxi voucher from the airport to whatever place you are going. It can only be used from the airport to this place, and it can only be used on the day of your flight. And it can only be used then as well. That's it. You cannot save it. You cannot use it again. It is worthless after that. It will get you nowhere. Be aware. Just use it. Can't hurt. You can get picked up and not take a taxi voucher. That is an option as well. But just be aware that the people should only come to pick you up after your paperwork is done because it could be a long process and then they'll be waiting a long time. And pretty much that's it. Just make sure you update all the information on all your papers and you should be good to go. If you have any questions, make sure you ask your Aliyah advisor or leave a comment down below and I'll be more than happy to try to either answer your question or point you in the right direction. Good luck on your Aliyah process and stay tuned for more videos.